Welcome, dear subscribers and curious listeners of my channel. Today, we will explore several aspects of Albus Dumbledore that showcase his multifaceted personality. And despite the fact that this character was portrayed fairly accurately in the films, there are still nuances that remain somewhat unclear. We'll talk about what Dumbledore was like in the books and what changed in his film adaptation. Enjoy watching. Number 1. The cheerful old man. One of the most common complaints about Dumbledore, both from fans and viewers, is his inactivity. A powerful wizard, the one who was even feared by Lord Voldemort, often spends his days in his office while his students risk their lives. But this trait of his character is not only present in the films, it also exists in the books. J.K. Rowling made an effort to make Dumbledore a bit more active, to show that he hasn't forgotten about his students. In the first book, Dumbledore saves Harry from Quirrell by arriving at the last possible moment of their confrontation. This adds an important subtext. Albus truly cares about Harry and doesn't let him die, also indicating that Quirrell's death wasn't a result of Harry's actions but the consequence of Voldemort leaving his body. Quote, "Were you there?" exclaimed Harry. "Did you get the owl Hermione sent? We must have missed each other in the air." As soon as I arrived in London, it became clear that I should be exactly where I had left. I arrived in time and managed to pull Quirrell off of you. "So it was you," Harry said. "It was you. I feared I was late," Dumbledore admitted. Also, despite his frequent absence, Albus doesn't forget about his students in the books and intervenes promptly in crucial moments, such as when Hagrid is troubled by Rita Skeeter's article. At that moment, Dumbledore is the first to come to his aid. Quote, Hagrid, open up! You're home! What difference does it make if your mother was a giantess? Forget about that gossiping Skeeter. Open up, Hagrid, you—" The door opened. Well, I've been waiting for—" Hermione trailed off. At the door, instead of Hagrid, stood Albus Dumbledore. Number 2. The master of the situation. Now let's talk about the most famous moment, the scene with the goblet of fire, where Dumbledore in the film literally jumps at Harry, accusing him of putting his name in the cup. In the film he acts with irritation, while in the books his reaction is much calmer. Albus remains composed and, instead of accusing, admits his own mistake. Quote, "Did you, Harry, put your name in the goblet of fire?" "No," Harry replied under the weight of all the gazes. "Maybe you asked someone older to put your name in the goblet." "No," Harry answered firmly. "He's lying," Madame Maxime exclaimed. "Harry couldn't have crossed the forbidden line." Professor McGonagall intervened. "Then I suppose it was Dumbledore who made a mistake," Madame Maxime shrugged. "Perhaps I made a mistake," Dumbledore agreed. This elegance, calmness, and ability to keep the situation under control are typical traits of the real Dumbledore, well reflected in the books. Number 3. The good-natured eccentric. Finally, we reach the most interesting part, was the image of the eccentric Dumbledore, who often finds himself in the spotlight due to his eccentricity. Despite his genius, his behavior was always a little crazy and attracted attention from those around him. In the books, Dumbledore often acts like a good-natured eccentric, not shy to engage in fun conversations with students and remind them about life with humor. Quote, "What do you see when you look into the mirror?" Harry blurted, holding his breath. "Me?" Professor asked. "I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks." Harry looked at him in confusion. "A person can never have too many socks, Dumbledore explained. "And the Christmas has passed, and I haven't received a single pair. People seem to only give me books." In the film, this moment was much more restrained. Dumbledore, portrayed by Richard Harris, didn't have that specific charm and oddity that the books gave him, where his eccentricities were an important part of his character. Then in the movie The Prisoner of Azkaban, a new actor, Michael Gambon, appeared and began to actively portray this image, adding more mischief, playfulness and mystery, sometimes with a cheerful approach to matters. Number 4. The legendary manipulator. One of Dumbledore's most underrated qualities, often absent in the films, is his ability to manipulate people without them realizing it. He never gives direct commands. Instead, he gently nudges others toward decisions he believes are best. This skill is evident in his interactions with Harry. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore tells Harry, "Harry, you will have to make a choice. I can only show you the way, but it is you who must walk it." This line perfectly encapsulates Dumbledore's approach. He guides Harry, but ultimately Harry must choose his own path. Dumbledore's manipulation isn't about control, it's about trust and allowing others to learn through their own decisions. In the books, Dumbledore's methods feel more subtle and layered than what is often portrayed on screen. Take, for example, his decision to let Harry face certain dangers on his own, despite knowing the risks. Dumbledore doesn't act directly to protect Harry from every threat, but instead encourages him to act independently. This strategy isn't about putting Harry in harm's way, it's about teaching him how to navigate the world, knowing that growth often comes from facing challenges head-on. Dumbledore's manipulation in this sense is a form of protection. It's a way of shaping the future by letting others find their own way, even if it means taking a few missteps along the way. Number 5. Secrets of the past. Dumbledore's past is shrouded in mystery, and his darker experiences are as integral to his character as his wisdom and kindness. In the books, there are frequent hints about his troubled history, particularly his relationship with Gellert Grindelwald. Dumbledore's youthful ambition to reshape the world, alongside his friendship and eventual rivalry with Grindelwald, plays a crucial role in shaping the man he becomes. Unlike the films, which paint Dumbledore as a near-perfect hero, the books reveal his mistakes, failures, and losses. These events form the core of his growth, showing that even the greatest minds must confront the darkness within themselves. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore says, "I made my mistakes, Harry, and it is those mistakes that have made me who I am today. But remember, what matters most is not what you do, but how you make amends for it." This quote captures Dumbledore's philosophy. His past is not one of untouched glory, but of personal error and deep regret. Yet his ability to acknowledge these mistakes and work toward redemption highlights the depth of his character. In the films, much of this complexity is lost, but in the books, Dumbledore's journey through regret to wisdom becomes one of the most compelling aspects of his character. Number 6. The Seer of the Future. Dumbledore's leadership was never about commanding others through loud speeches or forceful gestures. He didn't need to yell to be heard. In the books, his leadership is grounded in his quiet confidence and the way he makes others feel valued and empowered. It's not his power that attracts followers. It's his ability to make them believe in their own strength. He doesn't demand respect. He earns it through his actions and his belief in the potential of those around him. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, he tells Harry, "Your fears and doubts are what make you weak, Harry. Believe in your strength, your rightness, and then nothing will be beyond your reach." This moment speaks to Dumbledore's philosophy. True leadership comes from within, not from imposing your will on others. In the films, Dumbledore often appears as a figure of authority, towering over others with his wisdom and strength. But in the books, his leadership is more subtle. His real power lies in his ability to inspire and motivate those around him, especially when the odds are stacked against them. This inner strength is crucial, yet it's something that often gets overshadowed in the cinematic adaptations. Dumbledore's leadership is quiet but effective. His words and actions don't just command attention, they encourage others to rise to the occasion. He leads not through fear but through belief, in himself and in others. This is what makes him not just a leader, but a true figure of inspiration. Number 7, the teacher, not the mentor. Dumbledore was more than a wizard, he was a true teacher. Unlike the film portrayal where he often takes charge and leads events in the books, his role is much subtler. He doesn't impose his ideas on Harry, instead he provides the tools and guidance needed for Harry to solve his own problems. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Dumbledore tells Harry, "You must learn to take responsibility for your actions. Only then will you grow, Harry." This quote shows how Dumbledore's approach was not about solving problems for Harry, but helping him understand that growth comes through personal responsibility. It's not about being a mentor who always directs, but about being a teacher who empowers. In the films, Dumbledore often appears as a figure who fixes everything, the guiding hero who steps in at the crucial moment. But in the books, his actions are less about intervention and more about fostering independence. He trusts Harry to make his own choices, knowing that only through personal reflection and effort will Harry become the person he needs to be. This nuanced approach to teaching is what sets Dumbledore apart as a mentor in the books, contrasting with the more action-oriented role he plays on screen. He teaches Harry not just with words, but through the freedom to learn from his own experiences. Number 8. Friend and foe. Dumbledore's view on enemies is both complex and profound. He understood that sometimes our greatest lessons come from those we consider our foes. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, he explains this to Harry in a quiet, thoughtful way. "I do not hate him, Harry, I just cannot understand him. But neither can he understand me. We have always been opposites. But that does not mean I must be his enemy." This statement is crucial to understanding Dumbledore's approach to life. Unlike many, he doesn't see conflict as a reason to harbor hatred. Instead, he sees it as an opportunity to learn and grow. One of the most telling relationships in this regard is with Severus Snape. Despite Snape's betrayal and hostility, Dumbledore never viewed him solely as an enemy. He saw beyond Snape's actions, recognizing the pain and turmoil within him. In their final conversation in The Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore speaks of forgiveness not as an act of weakness, but as an understanding of the complexity of human nature. He doesn't justify Snape's actions, but he understands that Snape's choices were shaped by his own experiences and regrets. This capacity to forgive, even in the face of betrayal, is a hallmark of Dumbledore's wisdom. Dumbledore's relationship with Voldemort, however, is perhaps the most telling of his philosophy. He does not see Voldemort merely as a villain to be defeated, but as a tragic figure who, through his own choices, has lost his humanity. Dumbledore recognizes the parallels between them, both driven by a desire for power and control in their youth, but ultimately taking very different paths. He sees that Voldemort's greatest flaw is his inability to understand love and connection, and that is what makes him truly dangerous. In the end, Dumbledore's greatest strength lies in his ability to learn from his enemies, to see them as reflections of himself, and to grow from those lessons, something that the films often gloss over in favor of simpler portrayals of conflict. Number 9. Strategist and manipulator of fates. Dumbledore was not only a wise teacher, but a master strategist. His actions, often unpredictable, were always driven by a clear plan. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, we see this side of him more than ever. Dumbledore didn't just make sacrifices for the greater good, he engineered them. Every move he made, even the ones that seemed spontaneous, was part of a carefully calculated strategy. His decisions weren't random acts of kindness or heroism. They were calculated steps designed to ensure the long-term defeat of Voldemort, even if it meant short-term loss. When Dumbledore reveals crucial secrets to Harry, he understands the gravity of the situation. He knows the stakes and how important it is for Harry to learn these truths. One of the most telling quotes comes from this moment. "You must understand, Harry, that we must move to win, not wait for victory to come to us." Dumbledore's words highlight his understanding of the need for action. In this moment, he manipulates not only the people around him, but also the course of events. He guides Harry with purpose, knowing that the young wizard's journey will lead him to the final confrontation with Voldemort. In the book, this manipulation of events is not only strategic, but deeply personal. Dumbledore, knowing his own death was imminent, set in motion a series of events to ensure that Harry would eventually be able to defeat Voldemort. He orchestrates Snape's actions, convincing him to act as a double agent, and even arranges for his own death to serve as a pivotal moment in the war. These actions, though seemingly impulsive at times, were part of a much larger vision. Dumbledore knew that without this final sacrifice, Voldemort would never be defeated. This aspect of Dumbledore's character is often overlooked in the films, where his wisdom and kindness take center stage. The books, however, reveal him as a figure who is constantly thinking several steps ahead. He was more than just a teacher. He was a player in a much larger game. Every piece he moved, every decision he made was calculated with the final goal of defeating Voldemort in mind. Through his actions, Dumbledore proved that sometimes the greatest victory requires the most careful and secretive manipulation of fate. Number 10. The power of personal sacrifices. Dumbledore's life was shaped by personal sacrifices, often for a greater purpose. He was willing to give up everything, even his most cherished desires, to achieve victory over evil. One of the most tragic sacrifices he made was tied to his past with Gellert Grindelwald. The two were once close, united by shared dreams of a world where wizards ruled over muggles. Their bond was intense, but ultimately it led to a fatal mistake. Dumbledore's sister, Ariana, was killed in the aftermath of a duel between him and Grindelwald. This event haunted Dumbledore, shaping his decisions for the rest of his life. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore reflects on his choices. "I made my mistake, and I lost more than I could ever have imagined, but in this pain I found my way." This is a pivotal moment in understanding Dumbledore's character. The loss of his sister weighed heavily on him, shaping his belief in redemption and the need for sacrifice. He realized that greatness often comes at a personal cost, and his choices were driven by a sense of duty to protect the wizarding world, even if it meant losing everything. The film adaptations touch on this dark chapter of Dumbledore's past, but the books reveal much more. In the novel, we learn how Dumbledore's guilt over Ariana's death led him to abandon his youthful ambitions. His relationship with Grindelwald was not just a friendship, it was a love that had the potential to reshape the wizarding world. When that dream fell apart, it devastated Dumbledore. Yet it also steered him toward the path of wisdom and selflessness as he chose to fight not for personal glory, but for the greater good of all. This internal struggle is visible throughout Dumbledore's life. In the final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, we see how his sacrifices continue to influence his decisions, even in death. He leaves Harry a complex legacy, not one of perfection, but of striving for the right cause despite the costs. Dumbledore knew that his choices would lead to personal loss, but he accepted that for the sake of defeating evil, some sacrifices were necessary. This theme of personal sacrifice, so deeply intertwined with his character, ultimately defines Dumbledore as both a mentor and a tragic hero. Number 11, Father and Mentor. Albus Dumbledore's relationship with Harry Potter stands as one of the most poignant and complex narratives within the world J.K. Rowling created. In the books, Dumbledore is not simply a mentor or a teacher, he becomes a father figure, someone who steers Harry through the emotional turmoil and the dark challenges that lie ahead. Their connection, however, is anything but simple. Dumbledore shapes Harry's journey not only through his teachings of magic, but also by guiding him in understanding his own identity, making him a crucial character in Harry's life, an irreplaceable figure who embodies belief and guidance. Dumbledore's role as a father figure to Harry begins subtly. Harry, an orphan from a young age, has known the pain of loss and the void left by the death of his parents. He is thrust into a world of magic where, while surrounded by powerful individuals, no one truly takes him in, no one looks after him the way a father would. But Dumbledore, in his quiet and persistent way, does. From the very first year at Hogwarts, when Harry is unsure of his place in the magical world, Dumbledore is there, never too forceful, but always ready, with a word of advice or a guiding hand. His subtle encouragements, such as placing Harry as the seeker on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, show how he quietly but firmly believes in Harry's potential. As the story progresses, this belief deepens into something far more profound. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore expresses his belief in Harry in a way that goes beyond just admiration for his courage. "I became for you a father not because you could not live without me, but because I believed in you more than you believed in yourself," Dumbledore tells Harry, not in an overt moment of affection, but in a quiet, powerful reflection. This moment, stripped of any overt emotional display, highlights how Dumbledore's influence is not based on simple affection, but on a deep, rooted belief in Harry's ability to rise above the challenges that are set before him. Harry's development is marked by Dumbledore's constant involvement in shaping his moral compass. In contrast to the films, where Dumbledore's character sometimes seems like an almost omnipotent figure whose actions are more a reflection of his wisdom and power, the books paint him as a figure who, despite his immense wisdom, is always trying to guide Harry toward his own autonomy. The film adaptations tend to emphasize Dumbledore's commanding presence, often focusing on his role as a strategist or leader in the war against Voldemort. The books, however, reveal the more personal side of Dumbledore's character. His decisions, particularly in relation to Harry, are driven not just by a desire to defeat evil, but also by a desire to help Harry learn how to face his own fears and insecurities. Dumbledore's belief in Harry is illustrated in multiple situations throughout the series. One of the clearest examples of this is in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore works tirelessly to prepare Harry for his eventual confrontation with Voldemort. While Harry is often unsure of his own abilities, Dumbledore remains confident, imparting lessons not just in magic, but in courage and sacrifice. The most notable moment of this is when Dumbledore, dying, passes on the task of destroying Voldemort's Horcruxes to Harry, trusting that Harry has the strength to complete the task despite all odds. Dumbledore is not just giving Harry a mission, he is giving him the opportunity to forge his own path, to become the man he must be, even if it means placing Harry in grave danger. Dumbledore's faith in Harry is not blind, it is built on a foundation of understanding, experience, and ultimately, love. He sees the potential in Harry to accomplish what others cannot, and he pushes him towards this destiny, but with great care. This is especially evident in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, when Harry is chosen by the Goblet of Fire to compete in the Triwizard Tournament. While Harry himself is unsure of his ability to succeed, Dumbledore, despite his own worries, offers no doubt. His faith in Harry is so profound that it shapes the way Harry perceives his own worth. For Harry, the affirmation from Dumbledore is often the only thing that keeps him going in moments of despair. Unlike the films, which occasionally show Dumbledore as a near-infallible figure whose every move is part of some larger, more complex plan, the books reveal a much more nuanced portrait of him. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Harry learns more about Dumbledore's past, his mistakes, his regrets, and his youthful ambition. Dumbledore is not a perfect man. He is deeply flawed, much like Harry himself. His past is filled with choices that haunt him, particularly his youthful friendship with Gellert Grindelwald, a relationship that led him down a dangerous path. These revelations do not lessen Harry's admiration or affection for Dumbledore, but rather they deepen it. Dumbledore's flaws make him human, and it is this humanity that Harry finds most reassuring. The relationship between Harry and Dumbledore is not just one of mentorship and paternal guidance. It is also one of mutual respect and understanding. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry starts to recognize that Dumbledore is not an infallible figure, and he becomes more independent in his thinking. For example, when Dumbledore asks Harry to retrieve a memory from Professor Slughorn about Tom Riddle's past, it is not simply a request made by a superior to a subordinate. It is a challenge for Harry to step outside of his own comfort zone, to think critically, and to act independently. Dumbledore does not hover over Harry, dictating every move. Instead, he encourages Harry to make decisions and learn from his own experiences. Number 12, a personality in the shadows. Albus Dumbledore, the wise and enigmatic headmaster of Hogwarts, is a figure who occupies a curious space between the shadows and the light throughout J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. In the books, Dumbledore's true depth and complexity often remain obscured, not because of a lack of development, but because he chooses at crucial moments to act from the periphery. This is a key element of his character. His genius is not in his ability to command attention or stand at the forefront, but in his understanding that sometimes, to win a war, one must stay hidden in the shadows. This is starkly evident in his advice to Harry. Sometimes, Harry, the best way to learn is to stay in the background, in the shadows of others. A line paraphrased from Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. In the films, this subtlety is often lost. Directors and screenwriters, by necessity, must condense and focus the action to fit within the bounds of cinema. Dumbledore's grand moments in the films are meant to emphasize his power and brilliance. However, these adaptations, while spectacular, miss a significant aspect of his character, his preference for operating from the shadows, for influencing events without the need to overtly direct them. The Dumbledore of the books is not the one who actively seeks the limelight, but rather one who understands the value of quiet manipulation and subtlety, guiding events and people from behind the scenes. Take, for example, his role in the Triwizard Tournament in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The film portrays Dumbledore as somewhat more visibly concerned and active in protecting Harry. While this is fitting for the cinematic portrayal of the headmaster as a guiding figure, the book gives a much more restrained picture. Dumbledore's subtlety, his willingness to let events unfold at their own pace, is shown in how he allows Harry to deal with the danger of the tournament without intervening directly until absolutely necessary. He knows that Harry must face the challenges on his own. There is an inherent trust in Dumbledore's philosophy that even in the face of great danger, Harry's growth and development cannot be rushed, nor can it be dictated by the hand of his protector. Dumbledore understands the importance of giving Harry space to become the hero he is meant to be. This is not just a lesson for Harry, it is a fundamental principle of Dumbledore's approach to the battle against Voldemort. While the films often portray Dumbledore as a man with all the answers, ready to take action at any moment, the books reveal him as a figure who prefers to wait, observe, and consider every possible outcome before making a move. This careful approach, however, can be misinterpreted by those around him as indecision or passivity. In reality, Dumbledore's actions often occur in a quiet, almost invisible way, such as his manipulation of the events surrounding Tom Riddle's past, or his careful cultivation of Harry's strength and character. The most prominent example of Dumbledore's influence behind the scenes can be seen in the way he handles the relationship between Harry and Voldemort. Dumbledore knows that Harry's eventual victory over Voldemort is not just a matter of power or battle strategy, but of understanding the truth about love, sacrifice, and death. The films, in their attempt to speed through plot points, often emphasize the physical battles between the two, but the books show a more nuanced, intellectual struggle. Dumbledore does not simply prepare Harry for a final confrontation. He spends years cultivating a moral framework that will allow Harry to defeat Voldemort not just physically, but morally and psychologically. The line, "It is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities," spoken by Dumbledore in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, resonates deeply within this context. It speaks to the heart of Dumbledore's plan to prepare Harry for the greater battle within, one where his choices, guided by his internal sense of right and wrong, will be his greatest weapon. But while the films focus on Dumbledore's wisdom and his foresight, they often fail to showcase his manipulation of people and events. In the books, Dumbledore is not just a wise man with an omniscient view of the future. He is a master manipulator, a tactician who moves chess pieces quietly in the background to ensure his ultimate goal is achieved. His manipulation is not malevolent, but rather it is rooted in his understanding that some truths must be revealed slowly over time to prevent chaos. The most prominent example of this is his handling of Harry's knowledge about the Horcruxes. Dumbledore does not reveal everything to Harry at once, as he understands the burden of this knowledge and the emotional toll it will take. This decision to withhold critical information is something that the films struggle to convey. The tension between Dumbledore's protection of Harry and the necessity of preparing him for the future is a subtle but powerful element of the book's narrative. It is a complex moral decision. To protect someone, sometimes you must allow them to grow in ways they do not yet understand. A particularly significant moment of Dumbledore's manipulation occurs in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when he reveals to Harry the truth about his own past, including his regrets and mistakes. This moment, a turning point in the books, is far more complex than it appears on the surface. Dumbledore's vulnerability is something that is often overlooked in the films, where he is usually portrayed as a figure of complete wisdom and strength. In the book, Dumbledore's mistakes are a reflection of his own humanity, and he willingly shows these weaknesses to Harry, hoping that Harry will learn from his mistakes and ultimately forgive him. In the film, this moment is rushed and simplified, leaving behind the true gravity of Dumbledore's decision to open up to Harry. Number 13. Wisdom in Redemption. Albus Dumbledore is a character who embodies the philosophy of redemption and the belief that every individual, regardless of their past actions, has the potential to change. This theme is not only central to Dumbledore's own personal growth, but is a significant aspect of the broader narrative in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. The movies, while capturing much of his character's essence, cannot fully convey the depth of his beliefs as seen in the books, especially when it comes to his interactions with others and his steadfast faith in the power of forgiveness and self-reflection. In the Harry Potter books, Dumbledore is not portrayed as a perfect, untouchable figure. Rather, he is a man who has made mistakes and is fully aware of his own darkness. This human element of his character is explored in great detail in the series, particularly in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Harry learns about Dumbledore's past and the secret burden he has carried. The wisdom Dumbledore imparts to Harry often comes from his own experiences, notably those of his youth when he sought power and was tempted by the idea of controlling the wizarding world. And this is a theme that resonates deeply within the books. The idea that everyone, even those who have done wrong, can change if they are willing to confront their own flaws. Dumbledore's belief in the possibility of redemption is most clearly illustrated through his relationship with Severus Snape. Snape is a man who has made grave mistakes in his life, including betraying those closest to him, but Dumbledore sees beyond his past actions. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it is revealed that Dumbledore trusted Snape, not because he was blind to Snape's flaws, but because he understood the complexity of human nature. He knew that Snape's willingness to fight against Voldemort despite his own personal pain was a sign of his potential for redemption. Dumbledore forgave Snape and gave him a chance to redeem himself, even though Snape's actions had caused irreparable harm to others. The concept of forgiveness is intricately tied to Dumbledore's personal philosophy. In the books, he often speaks of the importance of making amends and learning from one's mistakes. For Dumbledore, the act of forgiving oneself and others is the first step toward healing. This is evident when Harry, under Dumbledore's guidance, learns that forgiveness is not about erasing past wrongs, but accepting responsibility for them. Dumbledore's wisdom regarding redemption is a constant theme in his mentorship of Harry, teaching him that even the most deeply entrenched darkness can be overcome if one is truly willing to change. One of the most poignant examples of Dumbledore's philosophy of redemption can be found in his own backstory, revealed through Harry's conversations with him in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Dumbledore confesses his own role in a youthful quest for power and his eventual realization that the path he chose was one that led to destruction, not only for himself, but for those around him. This moment of vulnerability shows that Dumbledore, while a man of great wisdom, is also someone who has learned from his own mistakes. His journey of self-realization is an essential part of his character, and it serves as a powerful reminder that even those who wield great power must face their own flaws if they are to truly grow. In the movies, Dumbledore's wisdom and belief in redemption are present, but often glossed over, with the emphasis on his role as a wise mentor and protector of Harry. While the films capture Dumbledore's iconic lines, they do not delve as deeply into the emotional and psychological complexity of his character. For example, the scene in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where Dumbledore asks Harry to help him find the Horcruxes, is much more layered in the book. The emotional weight of the task, the knowledge of Dumbledore's impending death, and the understanding that Harry is being prepared for a pivotal role in the fight against Voldemort are all elements that the films cannot fully capture. Dumbledore's faith in Harry is also a manifestation of his belief in redemption. Harry, like Dumbledore, has a dark side, a side that comes from the potential for great power within him. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry is plagued by the fear that he might be becoming like Voldemort, succumbing to the same darkness that consumed the Dark Lord. Dumbledore, however, constantly reminds Harry that the ability to choose his own path is what separates him from Voldemort. It is through Dumbledore's guidance that Harry learns that redemption is not a destination, but a continuous process, a series of choices that must be made every day. While Dumbledore's philosophy of redemption is one of his most powerful traits, it is also something that is often misunderstood by those around him. Many of his actions, particularly his decision to keep certain secrets from Harry, are motivated by his desire to protect Harry from the burden of knowing too much too soon. However, this decision is not without its own consequences, and Dumbledore's realization of the cost of keeping secrets is another important aspect of his character development. In the end, Dumbledore understands that even the most noble intentions can have unintended consequences, and this is something he grapples with throughout the series. Number 14, Kindness as a Weapon. Albus Dumbledore stands as one of the most complex and compelling figures in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. In both the books and the films, he is portrayed as the wise, kind-hearted headmaster of Hogwarts, guiding Harry and others with his unmatched knowledge of magic and life. However, there is a profound depth to Dumbledore's character that is most fully explored in the books, particularly when it comes to his willingness to make difficult, often painful sacrifices for the greater good. This theme of self-sacrifice, so central to Dumbledore's essence, is crucial in understanding the true meaning of his character. The films, while visually spectacular and emotionally stirring, often fail to delve into this aspect of Dumbledore, missing the layers of his personality that Rowling so carefully wove into the narrative. In the books, Dumbledore's journey is marked by his constant struggle with the consequences of his actions. He is a man who understands that every choice, no matter how noble the intent, carries with it a cost. His commitment to the fight against Voldemort is not without personal sacrifice. One of the most striking examples of this comes when Dumbledore reveals to Harry the full extent of his past mistakes, particularly his association with Gellert Grindelwald. Dumbledore was once blinded by ambition, much like Voldemort himself, but unlike the Dark Lord, he learned the importance of self-reflection and redemption. However, Dumbledore also realizes that the consequences of his past actions will haunt him forever. In The Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore admits to Harry, "I knew I would lose everything I loved and I was ready for it, but if it could save just one person, I would make that choice again," he is not just speaking about the price of fighting evil, but about the cost of every decision he has ever made in his life. This willingness to sacrifice himself is not just philosophical but deeply personal. Dumbledore's burden is heavier than many realize. He chooses to let Harry know about the prophecy and the role Harry must play in defeating Voldemort, even though doing so means exposing his own vulnerabilities. This decision weighs heavily on him, knowing that Harry will have to face unimaginable trials and, perhaps, death. In the moment of revealing this truth to Harry, Dumbledore accepts that he might not survive the fight, and he is prepared for that outcome. He does not want to lead Harry into danger, but he knows it is inevitable. His sense of duty to protect the wizarding world transcends his personal safety and even his life. One of the most poignant elements of Dumbledore's journey is his acceptance of the fact that he may need to die to secure victory over Voldemort. The books make it clear that Dumbledore is not just planning for a future battle, but is preparing for his own death. His decision to allow Severus Snape to kill him was not a rash or desperate act, but a carefully orchestrated plan. Dumbledore's reasoning for this, as explained in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, is a testament to his deep understanding of the greater good. He knows that his death will be a necessary step in ensuring Voldemort's downfall, but even more than that, Dumbledore's willingness to die is a profound act of selflessness. It shows that he is ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of others, something that sets him apart from Voldemort, who will do anything to avoid death, even at the cost of his humanity. In the film adaptations, Dumbledore's willingness to die is often downplayed or glossed over. The films focus more on his grand speeches and his mentor role to Harry, but they fail to capture the quiet, internal conflict Dumbledore experiences as he prepares to face his own end. In the books, however, this theme is explored in greater depth. For example, when Dumbledore tells Harry that he must trust Snape even though Harry cannot understand why, he is not simply being cryptic or mysterious. He knows that Snape's loyalty to him is the key to Harry's survival. Dumbledore's faith in Snape, a man with a dark past and a tortured soul, is a sign of his own capacity for forgiveness and understanding, even when others might view Snape as a villain. This trust, this act of belief in someone who has betrayed him in the past, is another example of Dumbledore's willingness to sacrifice his own safety for the greater good. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching part of Dumbledore's sacrifice is the fact that he does not expect to be remembered as a hero. He knows that history will likely not view him with the same reverence that others do. His actions, his choices, are not about fame or recognition, but about doing what is necessary to ensure a better future. In this sense, Dumbledore becomes the ultimate symbol of selflessness. His life, filled with power and respect, is not about his personal legacy, but about protecting the people he loves and the world he wants to preserve. His death, while tragic, is necessary for the success of the mission. He does not hesitate, knowing that his sacrifice is part of the larger plan that will ultimately lead to Voldemort's defeat. The films, with their visual spectacle and emotional moments, fail to convey the full depth of Dumbledore's selflessness. While Michael Gambon's portrayal of Dumbledore is admirable, it is in the written word that Dumbledore's true sacrifice shines. The films show Dumbledore as a character who is wise and all-knowing, but they do not fully capture the weight of his inner turmoil. In the books, Dumbledore's suffering is palpable. He knows that his actions will lead to his death, and he is ready to face it. But it does not make the choice any easier. The films, by focusing more on the external plot, miss the nuance of Dumbledore's internal conflict, the emotional burden he carries, and the acceptance he shows when he realizes that his life must end for the greater good. This contrast between the books and the films is perhaps most evident in Dumbledore's relationship with Harry. In the books, Harry's understanding of Dumbledore's sacrifice is a slow, painful process. He does not immediately grasp the full extent of what Dumbledore has done, and it is only after Dumbledore's death that he begins to understand the true nature of the sacrifices made for him and for the world. In the films, Harry's grief is immediate and overwhelming, but the complexity of his feelings towards Dumbledore is not fully explored. The books, on the other hand, allow Harry to process his emotions, to wrestle with his anger, confusion, and ultimately his acceptance of Dumbledore's choices. This journey is central to Harry's own growth as a character, and it underscores the theme of sacrifice that runs throughout the series. At the heart of Dumbledore's character is his belief in the greater good, even if that belief means sacrificing his own happiness, his own life. The films, while beautifully made, do not always capture the full scope of this sacrifice. They present Dumbledore as a wise mentor, a symbol of hope, but they miss the layers of tragedy that make him one of the most selfless characters in the series. Dumbledore is not just a figure of wisdom, he is a man who has learned through painful experience the cost of doing what is right. His willingness to die for the cause is not just a plot point, it is the culmination of his life's work, the final act of a man who has spent his entire life striving for the greater good, no matter the cost. In the end, Albus Dumbledore is a character whose sacrifice goes beyond what the world sees. His death is not just a plot device, It is the tragic consequence of a life spent in service of others. His willingness to give everything, even his life, for the greater good, is what makes him such a powerful symbol of self-sacrifice. In the books, this sacrifice is explored in depth, making Dumbledore one of the most compelling and tragic figures in the Harry Potter series. The films, while offering a touching portrayal of the character, do not fully capture the depth of his sacrifice, leaving readers with a sense of loss and the understanding that some things are too important to be sacrificed, no matter the cost. Number 15. The Guru in the World of Magic. Albus Dumbledore's role in the Harry Potter series is far more than that of a wise old wizard who serves as a mentor to Harry. His character in the books is intricately woven with the themes of light and darkness, and unlike his portrayal in the films, the true depth of his understanding of these concepts is far more complex. In J.K. Rowling's writing, Dumbledore embodies the delicate balance between these two forces, revealing the nuanced nature of morality, power, and choice. His philosophy isn't about simply defeating darkness, but understanding and reconciling it with the light. This duality, so deeply ingrained in his character, is central to the underlying lessons he seeks to impart to Harry and the wizarding world at large. Throughout the books, Dumbledore frequently reflects on the idea that light and dark are not absolutes. They coexist, influence one another, and often exist in a state of equilibrium. As Harry grows up under Dumbledore's guidance, he learns that the ultimate battle is not one of good versus evil in a simple black and white sense, but the recognition that both forces are essential and are often intertwined. For Dumbledore, understanding and accepting darkness is as important as celebrating light. The wizarding world, he suggests, is not defined solely by the battle between these forces, but by how one navigates the spaces in between. In the films, Dumbledore's character is often depicted as a clear symbol of light, with his white beard and robes exuding warmth and wisdom. However, the depth of his character in the books paints him as a figure who has lived through much darker moments. His past is filled with regret, loss, and the choices he made during his youth, particularly in relation to Gellert Grindelwald. Dumbledore's encounter with Grindelwald, his former close friend and lover, was marked by ambition, a desire for power, and the belief that a greater good could justify the use of darkness to achieve it. It was a relationship founded on youthful ideals, but it ultimately led to tragedy and destruction. This experience fundamentally shaped Dumbledore's understanding of both light and dark, and it was from this painful chapter in his life that he learned the vital lesson that the pursuit of absolute power, even for a good cause, can lead to devastating consequences. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, we see Dumbledore's complex understanding of darkness. He reveals to Harry that the discovery of Voldemort's Horcruxes was, in many ways, a reflection of his own mistakes. He shares with Harry the truth about his own past and the darker path he once walked, admitting that he too had been tempted by power. His words resonate with Harry, but they also serve as a sobering reminder that no one, not even the most powerful wizard, is immune to the seductive pull of darkness. This vulnerability humanizes Dumbledore and adds weight to his belief that both light and dark are essential components of a person's identity. He does not view his past mistakes as something to be hidden or ashamed of, but as part of his growth, a growth that allows him to guide Harry more effectively. He knows that the key to defeating Voldemort lies not just in the light, but in confronting the darkness within. In contrast, the films tend to emphasize Dumbledore's light as an unyielding force against the evil of Voldemort. The films, constrained by time and visual storytelling, simplify his character into the archetype of the wise and selfless leader, focused almost entirely on the fight between good and evil. The depth of Dumbledore's internal struggle and his understanding of the necessity of both light and dark often gets lost. For instance, in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. When Dumbledore tells Harry, "The world had ended for you once before, and it will end again if you allow yourself to remain in darkness," the films present this as a simple call for Harry to reject despair. However, the deeper implication in the books is that Dumbledore is acknowledging that darkness is part of every human experience. Harry cannot fully embrace the light unless he also faces the darkness within himself. One of the clearest examples of Dumbledore's philosophy on light and darkness is his handling of Harry's grief and rage after the death of Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Harry is consumed with anger and the desire for revenge, emotions that cloud his judgment. Dumbledore, however, doesn't dismiss Harry's feelings. Instead, he encourages him to acknowledge the pain, but also to resist being consumed by it. He teaches Harry that while it is easy to let the darkness of grief turn into bitterness, it is far harder to find the strength to choose light in the midst of such suffering. It is not about eliminating pain or sorrow, but learning how to live with them, understand them, and allow them to shape one's path in a constructive way. This balance between light and dark, exemplified by Dumbledore's guidance, is also apparent in his relationship with Harry. Dumbledore, while often serving as a mentor, also recognizes the importance of letting Harry make his own choices, even when those choices are difficult. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore's past actions and his secrecy about certain matters come under scrutiny, but his ultimate belief in Harry's ability to choose the right path is unwavering. He understands that Harry must face his own darkness, his own fears, and make his own decisions about what he is willing to fight for. This marks a crucial moment in their relationship, where Dumbledore shifts from being the teacher who provides answers to the figure who trusts Harry to find those answers within himself. It is only by confronting both his personal darkness and his potential for greatness that Harry can ultimately defeat Voldemort. The most profound element of Dumbledore's philosophy is his view on the inherent connection between light and dark. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, he imparts to Harry a truth that becomes central to the entire series. The light is always strongest when it is most needed. In this statement, Dumbledore is acknowledging that darkness cannot exist without light, and vice versa. The two forces do not exist in opposition to each other, but in a constant state of flux, pushing and pulling, always influencing one another. The more the darkness grows, the more the light is called to shine. In this way, Dumbledore's understanding of light and dark is not about defeating one to preserve the other, but rather about recognizing their interdependence. Dumbledore's philosophy also teaches Harry that the real danger lies not in the dark forces themselves, but in how individuals choose to wield them. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore speaks of the danger of power, he reveals that Voldemort's inability to understand the concept of love and his reliance on fear and control ultimately make him vulnerable. The light for Dumbledore is not about purity or perfection, but about understanding the complexity of human emotions, including love, loss, and hope. Dumbledore's own choices, especially those regarding his former friendship with Grindelwald, illustrate that even the greatest of wizards must confront the darkness within themselves. By doing so, they can avoid falling into the trap of seeking control over others and instead learn to embrace the power of choice, compassion, and self-awareness. Ultimately, Dumbledore's view on light and darkness is not one of binary opposition, but of coexistence and balance. His wisdom lies in his understanding that darkness is not inherently evil, nor is light inherently good. Instead, it is through the interplay of these forces, through recognizing their influence and their interconnectedness, that one can truly understand the nature of power, choice, and morality. This nuanced understanding is what makes Dumbledore not just a figure of wisdom, but a symbol of the complexity of human experience. His legacy in the books is not one of simple victories over darkness, but of embracing both light and dark as integral parts of the journey toward understanding, growth, and ultimate triumph. Number 16. Connection to the past. Dark corners. Albus Dumbledore is undoubtedly one of the most complex characters in the Harry Potter series, especially when it comes to the manipulation of fate and destiny. In the books, he is portrayed not as a passive observer of events, but as a powerful manipulator who subtly guides the course of history. Dumbledore does not merely react to the world around him, he shapes it, often in ways that are unseen, but always with purpose. His actions speak to a larger understanding of fate, one that acknowledges its existence while simultaneously asserting that individuals can make choices to alter their path. In the books, Dumbledore is keenly aware that fate is not a predetermined entity. Instead, he views it as something that can be influenced, shaped, and sometimes even defied. This is most evident in his involvement with Harry Potter, where Dumbledore acts as both a mentor and a silent orchestrator, nudging Harry in specific directions to fulfill a destiny that is not fully revealed to him until much later. The manipulation of fate is not just about making choices for Harry, but also about guiding him through choices that he must make on his own. Dumbledore's belief in the power of choice, however, is never more evident than in his insistence that Harry must make certain decisions alone, even when he, as a figure of authority, could easily intervene. Throughout the series, Dumbledore's role is that of a guiding force, always present but rarely overtly interfering. His planning is meticulous, designed to ensure that Harry will grow into the person he needs to be to defeat Voldemort. This is not done out of a desire to control Harry's actions, but rather to give him the tools he needs to become the hero that the wizarding world needs. Dumbledore's strategies are about providing Harry with the autonomy to decide for himself, which, in turn, allows him to build his own fate. It's a delicate balance. Dumbledore manipulates events and people in such a way that Harry is placed in positions where he must choose. Ultimately, it is Harry's choices that define his fate. One of the clearest examples of Dumbledore's manipulation of fate occurs in the 6th book, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Here, Dumbledore takes a significant risk by involving Harry in the quest to retrieve the Horcruxes, even though Harry does not fully understand the gravity of his role. Dumbledore knows that Harry will not stop searching for answers, and he encourages this pursuit even when it is perilous. But his ultimate goal is not just to defeat Voldemort, it is to ensure that Harry is equipped with the knowledge and emotional strength necessary to face his ultimate challenge, his death. Dumbledore's calculated decision to allow Harry to witness his own death, symbolically and literally, is a prime example of his belief in fate as something that can be shaped. Dumbledore knows that in order for Harry to become the man he needs to be, he must face death not as a victim, but as a chooser of his own fate. In contrast, the films, while still portraying Dumbledore as a key figure in Harry's life, often depict him as a more passive participant in the unfolding events. The films focus more on Dumbledore's wisdom and leadership, but they do not delve as deeply into the complexity of his strategic planning. Where the books show Dumbledore actively manipulating events and guiding others, the films tend to show him more as a figure who is reactive rather than proactive. This is particularly noticeable in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where the subtleties of Dumbledore's orchestration of events, particularly in relation to Snape and the Horcruxes, are less evident. In the films, Dumbledore is not seen as making the difficult choices that could alter the course of history. Instead, his actions appear more as guidance from a wise mentor, lacking the layers of manipulation that the books so carefully construct. Dumbledore's manipulation of fate is not only about direct actions, but also about his ability to shape the perceptions of others. A prime example of this can be seen in his treatment of Severus Snape. Dumbledore's relationship with Snape is one of the most mysterious and intriguing in the entire series. The books reveal that Dumbledore, aware of the consequences of Snape's actions, still makes the decision to trust him completely. Dumbledore's manipulation of Snape's fate is evident in his decision to keep Snape in the dark about the true nature of the prophecy. This manipulation serves to protect Harry, ensuring that Snape's role as a double agent remains intact. It is a delicate game of trust and betrayal, where Dumbledore plays both sides, maneuvering events to ensure that the final confrontation between Harry and Voldemort unfolds in the way he has planned. Dumbledore's ability to manipulate Snape's loyalty, to make him think he is acting out of love for Lily Potter when in fact he is fulfilling a greater plan, shows his mastery in shaping the fates of others without them fully realizing it. Dumbledore's manipulations are not always transparent, even to those closest to him. Harry himself at times feels betrayed by Dumbledore's decisions. This is especially true when Harry learns the full extent of Dumbledore's plans in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. In this final book, Harry discovers that Dumbledore had set him on a path that ultimately led to his own death. Harry is forced to reconcile the idea that his death was a necessary part of the plan to destroy Voldemort. While Harry struggles with this knowledge, Dumbledore's actions are revealed to be part of a larger design, one that acknowledges the inevitable but still offers Harry the choice to embrace his destiny. In this sense, Dumbledore manipulates fate not by taking away Harry's ability to choose, but by pushing him toward the most difficult and necessary decision of his life. The films, however, tend to downplay this aspect of Dumbledore's character. The most significant changes between the book and film adaptations are in the portrayal of Dumbledore's awareness of his own death. In the books, Dumbledore is fully aware of the risks he is taking, and he prepares Harry for the future, all while keeping the weight of his own knowledge hidden from those around him. The films, by contrast, present Dumbledore as a more tragic figure who is less in control of his fate and more of a martyr. His death in the films lacks the same forethought and planning that it does in the books, where every move is calculated. The films emphasize the emotional aspects of his sacrifice, but leave out the strategic manipulation of destiny that Dumbledore embodies in the novels. Dumbledore's ultimate manipulation of fate is seen in his relationship with the Elder Wand. He knowingly seeks out the wand, aware of the power it holds, but also aware of the dangers it presents. Dumbledore's decision to wield the Elder Wand is not about personal gain, but about ensuring that it does not fall into the wrong hands. In the books, his understanding of the wand's power is not just about strength, it is about controlling fate. The wand, much like Dumbledore's other manipulations, becomes a tool in his larger plan to defeat Voldemort. In the films, however, the significance of the wand is diminished, and its role in Dumbledore's strategy is less pronounced. The film's portrayal of the wand's power is more about its place in the final battle, while the books give it a much deeper, more nuanced significance in Dumbledore's ongoing manipulation of events. Dumbledore's actions throughout the series reveal a character who does not simply accept fate as something handed down from above. Instead, he actively participates in shaping his own destiny and the destiny of those around him. While the films focus on his wisdom and heroic sacrifice, the books reveal a far more complex and manipulative figure, one who understands that fate is not simply something that happens to people, but something that can be influenced and altered through choice and action. In this sense, Dumbledore's greatest strength lies not in his ability to foresee the future, but in his ability to shape it by carefully manipulating the choices of others, including Harry Potter himself. Number 17. The power of choice. Albus Dumbledore, one of the most complex characters in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, serves as a profound symbol of wisdom, redemption, and the transformative power of forgiveness. His ability to forgive those who have wronged him, especially Severus Snape, stands as one of the core themes that is explored in the books. While the films often focus on Dumbledore's role as the wise and powerful headmaster of Hogwarts, the books provide a much deeper exploration of his character, especially when it comes to forgiveness and understanding the weight of past actions. It is here, in these moments, that Dumbledore's true strength shines, not in his power to wield magic, but in his ability to show mercy and offer second chances. In the book Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore's relationship with Snape is unveiled as one of the most layered and poignant aspects of his character. Severus Snape, once a member of Voldemort's inner circle, commits what appears to be an unforgivable betrayal. He is responsible for the death of Dumbledore, a man who had trusted him implicitly. Yet throughout the narrative, Dumbledore's relationship with Snape is not one of condemnation, but of empathy and understanding. Dumbledore knew the secrets of Snape's past, his deep guilt over the death of Lily Potter, his longing for redemption, and the tremendous burden of the choices he had made. In the books, Dumbledore's forgiveness of Snape is not a momentary decision. It is a long, patient process that allows Snape to redeem himself in his own way. The complexity of Dumbledore's forgiveness is not about excusing Snape's actions, but rather about understanding the intricacies of his suffering and the motivations behind his choices. Dumbledore's willingness to forgive Snape, to see the man behind the mistakes, reflects a belief that no one is beyond redemption, no matter how dark their past. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities, Dumbledore famously tells Harry in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This quote encapsulates Dumbledore's philosophy of forgiveness. He is not looking at Snape's past, but at the possibility of his future. In contrast, the films, while still highlighting Dumbledore's wisdom and moral compass, often present a more straightforward view of his relationship with Snape. The emotional depth and complexity of Dumbledore's forgiveness are somewhat diminished, leaving viewers with the image of a stern yet caring mentor who acts in the interest of the greater good. In the film adaptations, much of the intricate history between Snape and Dumbledore, including their subtle conversations and the inner workings of Dumbledore's mind, is condensed or omitted, leaving only the most essential aspects of their interactions. As a result, the powerful act of forgiveness, which is central to their relationship in the books, is lost in the cinematic representation. Dumbledore's capacity for forgiveness also plays a critical role in his relationship with Harry Potter. While Harry has always been burdened with the weight of his past, his parents' deaths, the prophecy, and the constant battle against the Dark Lord, Dumbledore never once holds it against him. Instead, he encourages Harry to learn from his past, to embrace the pain and losses he has suffered, and to make peace with them. When Harry struggles with his own feelings of inadequacy, Dumbledore steps in as a guiding figure, offering him a lesson on the importance of accepting one's flaws. Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all those who live without love, Dumbledore tells him in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, reminding Harry that his journey is about more than just defeating Voldemort. It is about understanding and forgiving himself for his own perceived weaknesses. The contrast between Dumbledore's forgiveness and Harry's struggle to accept himself becomes a central theme in the final book. Harry grapples with the idea of sacrifice, the notion that he may have to die in order to defeat Voldemort, and yet, despite this, he learns to forgive himself for the things beyond his control. This is evident when Harry accepts his fate and willingly walks into the Forbidden Forest to face Voldemort. Dumbledore's teachings, to let go of the past, to forgive oneself and to choose love over fear, resonate in Harry's final moments. The act of forgiveness becomes a recurring motif in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, both in terms of Harry's understanding of himself and in his relationships with others, particularly Snape. In the book, Snape's final acts, his sacrifice, his love for Lily Potter, and his unwavering loyalty to Dumbledore are a testament to the power of forgiveness. Dumbledore, from the moment he learns of Snape's true allegiance, understands the pain that Snape has carried for years and accepts it. He does not see Snape as a mere pawn in a grand scheme. Instead, he sees a man who has struggled with guilt, love, and loss. "You have saved me," Snape says to Dumbledore in his final moments, acknowledging the weight of Dumbledore's belief in him, even when others could not. This moment encapsulates Dumbledore's philosophy, the belief that forgiveness and redemption are not about forgetting the past, but about allowing individuals the opportunity to change. Dumbledore's ability to forgive does not stem from a place of naivety or weakness. Rather, it is a reflection of his belief in the transformative power of love and self-awareness. In his view, to forgive is not to diminish the significance of past wrongs, but to allow for the possibility of growth and change. When Harry struggles with his own sense of guilt and responsibility, Dumbledore offers him the wisdom of his own experiences. "It is important," Dumbledore tells Harry, "that you see this, that you understand this, that you will be able to look beyond the mistakes that others have made, to see the choices they've made and their willingness to change." In the films, while the visual portrayal of Dumbledore's relationships is powerful, it sometimes lacks the nuances found in the books. His forgiveness is often portrayed as an act of wisdom or strategic importance, rather than a deeply personal and emotional decision. The scenes of Dumbledore with Harry and Snape, while impactful, do not delve into the emotional complexity of their conversations, leaving much of the characters' true motivations unspoken. For example, in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the book delves into Dumbledore's knowledge of his impending death and his willingness to sacrifice himself for the greater good. However, in the film, the focus shifts more towards the action and less on the internal emotional conflict that Dumbledore experiences. Dumbledore's capacity for forgiveness extends beyond his interactions with Snape and Harry. It is a defining aspect of his character throughout the series. He forgives those who have made mistakes in the past, such as Sirius Black, who was wrongfully imprisoned, or Hagrid, who had been blamed for the opening of the Chamber of Secrets. Dumbledore's willingness to see the good in others despite their flaws or past mistakes is a cornerstone of his leadership at Hogwarts. He recognizes that everyone has the potential for growth, redemption, and change, and he encourages his students and colleagues to strive for this. In many ways, Dumbledore's life is a testament to the power of forgiveness, not just as a concept, but as a practical and transformative force. He does not forgive to excuse behavior or to make things easier. He forgives because he understands that forgiveness is the key to moving forward. It is a strength, not a weakness. As Harry learns throughout the series, forgiveness is not an easy path, but it is a path that leads to healing and understanding. The ability to forgive, especially in the face of great suffering, is perhaps the greatest strength that Dumbledore possesses. the story of Dumbledore and Snape is ultimately one of personal redemption, and it is through this story that Dumbledore's philosophy of forgiveness is most clearly articulated. His ability to see beyond the mistakes of the past, to understand the pain and regrets of others, and to offer the opportunity for change is a lesson that resonates throughout the Harry Potter series. In both the books and the films, Dumbledore's forgiveness is a powerful reminder that the choices we make define us far more than the mistakes we have made. And it is through these choices, through our willingness to forgive and to be forgiven, that we truly find our strength. Number 18, pride and responsibility. Albus Dumbledore, the venerable headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, embodies wisdom and leadership in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. However, while the films often present him as a symbol of authority and wisdom, the books delve deeper into his philosophical and mentoring role, portraying him not merely as a figure of unquestionable knowledge, but as a complex individual who encourages his students, particularly Harry Potter, to challenge and refine their own beliefs. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore's wisdom is not just about knowing the answers, but about teaching others to ask the right questions. His interactions with Harry demonstrate the transformative power of questioning and doubt. In the books, Dumbledore is not an infallible sage. His beliefs evolve, and he is not afraid to confront uncomfortable truths. This complexity is less evident in the films, where he often appears almost as a flawless figure of guidance. The movies, constrained by their medium, reduce his character to an almost divine presence, an all-knowing leader whose decisions are never questioned. Yet in the novels, Dumbledore's humanity shines through, especially in his interactions with Harry. He understands the importance of doubt and the growth that comes from challenging one's own perceptions of right and wrong. One of Dumbledore's most profound lessons occurs in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when he tells Harry, "Wisdom, Harry, comes not with the number of facts you know, but with the ability to ask the right questions." This statement encapsulates Dumbledore's approach to wisdom. He teaches Harry that wisdom is not about accumulating information. Rather, it is about having the courage to question the status quo and think critically. It is a message that contrasts sharply with the typical portrayal of a wise character as someone who simply knows everything. Dumbledore encourages Harry to engage with the world around him, to ask questions, and to think for himself. In contrast to his film portrayal, where Dumbledore often appears as an omnipotent guide, the books show his mentorship as a process of gradual self-discovery. He never directly answers Harry's questions in the way one might expect from a traditional mentor. Instead, he often directs Harry towards self-reflection and critical thinking. This is particularly evident in their conversations about the Horcruxes and Voldemort's past. Instead of simply telling Harry what he needs to know, Dumbledore challenges Harry to make connections and draw his own conclusions. His teachings are not about providing answers, but about fostering an environment where his students feel empowered to think independently. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore's guidance reaches its peak as he attempts to prepare Harry for the daunting task of defeating Voldemort. He shares with Harry the grim reality of the battle they face, but he never presents it as a foregone conclusion. Dumbledore does not promise Harry success, nor does he shelter him from the darkness that lies ahead. Instead, he asks Harry to embrace uncertainty and doubt, which will eventually lead him to the critical realization of the importance of love and self-sacrifice. This is exemplified when Dumbledore, in his final moments, entrusts Harry with the knowledge that he too is a piece of the puzzle to defeat Voldemort. Dumbledore's philosophical outlook on life is also reflected in his approach to the magical world. He sees magic not just as a tool for power, but as something to be understood and respected. This perspective is in sharp contrast to the utilitarian approach of characters like Lord Voldemort, who views magic solely as a means to gain power and control. Dumbledore's view of magic is tied to a broader understanding of the world and humanity, emphasizing compassion, understanding, and responsibility. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore's comments about the Mirror of Erised demonstrate his deep understanding of human desires and the importance of knowing oneself. He explains that the mirror shows not what the viewer wants, but what they truly desire, highlighting the danger of obsession and the need to focus on the present rather than idealized fantasies. Another key difference between Dumbledore's portrayal in the books and the films is the depth of his past and the moral dilemmas he faces. The films briefly hint at his earlier life, especially in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, but the books provide a much richer exploration of Dumbledore's mistakes and regrets. His youthful pursuit of power and his eventual regret over his role in the death of his sister Ariana are crucial aspects of his character in the books, but are glossed over or entirely omitted in the films. This backstory adds layers to Dumbledore's character, showing that even the wisest among us are capable of great errors. His journey of redemption, of learning from his past, and his willingness to share these lessons with Harry are what make him such a compelling mentor. Dumbledore's relationship with Harry is also profoundly shaped by his own understanding of morality and destiny. He does not view Harry as a mere pawn in the battle against Voldemort, but as a young man capable of making his own choices. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore's influence on Harry reaches its fullest expression. He does not give Harry a clear path to follow, but instead leaves him with the critical tools to navigate his own journey. This is perhaps most evident in the final moments of the series when Harry chooses to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Dumbledore's philosophy has always been one of self-sacrifice, and through his mentorship, he instills this value in Harry. The films, on the other hand, present Dumbledore as a more distant figure, often appearing to make decisions from behind the scenes without fully explaining his reasoning to Harry. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, for example, Dumbledore's reluctance to confide in Harry about the prophecy and the role he must play in the fight against Voldemort creates a sense of mystery around his character. While this creates dramatic tension, it also removes some of the complexity found in the books, where Dumbledore's decisions are shown to be guided by his deeper understanding of Harry's development. In the books, Dumbledore understands the importance of giving Harry the space to grow, and sometimes that means withholding certain truths until the time is right. One of Dumbledore's most important teachings is about the power of choice. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, he explains to Harry that it is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. This philosophy shapes the entire series and is especially important in the context of the battle between Harry and Voldemort. While Voldemort seeks to impose his will on others, Harry's choices are always guided by love, empathy, and compassion. Dumbledore, as Harry's guide, ensures that Harry understands the weight of his choices and their potential to shape the future. The contrast between Harry's choices and Voldemort's shows the fundamental difference between the two characters, and it is a distinction that Dumbledore instills in Harry from the very beginning. Dumbledore's wisdom also extends to his understanding of the importance of community and the need to rely on others. Throughout the series, he emphasizes the strength found in unity. This is particularly evident in his leadership of the Order of the Phoenix, where he brings together a group of diverse individuals united by a common cause. In the books, Dumbledore is shown to be a great believer in collaboration, understanding that no one person can defeat evil alone. The films, however, often focus more on individual heroism, with Harry taking centre stage in the battle against Voldemort. While Harry is undeniably the hero of the series, Dumbledore's mentorship teaches him that strength lies not in solitary action, but in the collective efforts of those who stand together. Ultimately, Dumbledore's role as a mentor and philosopher in the books is far more nuanced and layered than his portrayal in the films. He is not just a wise old man dispensing advice from the sidelines, but a mentor who challenges his students to think critically, question their assumptions, take ownership of their decisions. His teachings are not about providing easy answers, but about encouraging personal growth and self-discovery. Dumbledore's wisdom is not absolute. It is a reflection of a life lived with doubt, mistakes, and constant learning. It is this depth of character that makes him such a compelling figure in the Harry Potter series, and one whose lessons continue to resonate with readers long after the final page is turned. Number 19, Dumbledore and Moral Dilemmas. Albus Dumbledore, one of the most beloved and enigmatic characters in the Harry Potter series, embodies the complexity of moral decision-making. His decisions, often seen as rooted in wisdom and experience, confront the duality of right and wrong, demonstrating the difficulty of navigating ethical dilemmas, especially when the stakes are high. In the books, Dumbledore is not merely a figure of authority. He is a character who constantly wrestles with the consequences of his choices. These moral challenges set him apart from the more straightforward characters in the series, revealing the nuanced nature of good and evil. One of the most poignant examples of Dumbledore's moral struggles occurs in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. At the heart of the story is the secret that Dumbledore has been keeping from Harry, the fact that he is dying from a curse placed on him by Tom Riddle. Dumbledore knows that his death is imminent, yet he never discloses this to Harry. Instead, he carefully plans Harry's involvement in the eventual defeat of Voldemort, believing that Harry must be the one to ultimately destroy the Dark Lord. This decision, though made with the best intentions, highlights a moral dilemma. Dumbledore essentially sacrifices himself, knowing that Harry will be thrust into dangerous circumstances. While his choice is made for the greater good, it places a heavy burden on a young boy who, until this point, has only been learning about the true weight of his role in the world. In the books, this decision is presented as a necessary evil, a reminder that sometimes the right choice isn't the one that feels morally comfortable, but the one that serves a higher purpose. The complexity of Dumbledore's morality is further illustrated by his relationship with Severus Snape. Throughout much of the series, Snape is portrayed as an antagonist, a character who is, at best, morally ambiguous. Yet, as Dumbledore reveals in the final book, his trust in Snape was rooted in a far deeper understanding of the man's personal demons and ultimate loyalty. Dumbledore knew that Snape was responsible for the murder of his sister, Oriana, yet he chose to forgive him. Dumbledore understood that Snape was not inherently evil, but had been broken by his own experiences, particularly his unrequited love for Lily Potter. This moral forgiveness order, allowing Snape to redeem himself despite his dark past, reveals Dumbledore's belief in the potential for change, even in the most flawed individuals. This, too, is a difficult moral decision. Trusting someone who has been a member of the Death Eaters, knowing that his past actions would forever taint his reputation, but also knowing that Snape's love for Lily drove him to make the ultimate sacrifice. The relationship between Harry and Dumbledore also highlights the theme of moral agency. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore's decision to withhold the prophecy about Harry's role in the defeat of Voldemort serves as one of the most morally contentious moments in the series. Harry, frustrated by his mentor's secrecy, questions Dumbledore's intentions, leading to a deep rift between them. Dumbledore understands that the prophecy is not a straightforward prediction of Harry's fate, but rather a manifestation of the choices that Harry will have to make. By keeping this information from Harry, Dumbledore is forcing him to confront the decision for himself, a decision that will ultimately determine whether he lives or dies. This is where the heart of Dumbledore's philosophy lies. He believes in the importance of free will, the idea that the future is not set in stone, and that the choices we make define us. This belief in moral agency is central to the moral complexity of his character, as he refuses to dictate Harry's actions even when he knows the consequences may be dire. Perhaps the most striking example of Dumbledore's moral courage occurs in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, when Harry discovers the truth about Dumbledore's past. Dumbledore, as it turns out, was once a young man consumed by ambition and pride, even willing to follow dark paths in his youth. His friendship with Gellert Grindelwald, a dark wizard bent on creating a world order ruled by wizards, represents a dark chapter in Dumbledore's life. He abandoned these ideals after the tragic death of his sister Ariana, but the guilt from that time never fully left him. The revelation of his past imperfections is shocking to Harry, who had always seen Dumbledore as a figure of perfect wisdom and righteousness. In revealing this truth to Harry, Dumbledore is essentially saying that even the greatest of men are flawed. He recognizes that his actions as a young man were wrong, and he regrets them deeply. However, by embracing the lessons learned from his past mistakes, Dumbledore is able to forge a path forward, not as a perfect hero, but as someone who has learned the importance of redemption and humility. The contrast between Dumbledore's moral decisions in the books and their portrayal in the films is striking. In the books, Dumbledore's character is layered, and his choices are often ambiguous, leaving room for readers to reflect on the consequences of each decision. The films, on the other hand, often focus more on action and spectacle, sacrificing the philosophical depth that defines Dumbledore's character. For example, in the movie adaptation of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore's death is shown as a dramatic, action-packed scene, with Harry helplessly watching as his mentor falls. While the scene is emotionally charged, it glosses over the complex moral questions that surround Dumbledore's actions. In the book, however, Dumbledore's death is the culmination of years of careful planning, moral struggle, and sacrifice. The emotional weight of his final decision, to ensure that Harry is the one to defeat Voldemort, is lost in the rush of cinematic action. The complexity of Dumbledore's philosophy is often overshadowed by the need to condense the narrative into a 2-hour film. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore's past is explored in greater depth, but the films struggle to capture the nuances of his character. His relationship with Grindelwald, which in the books is revealed slowly through flashbacks, is reduced to a few brief moments in the films. This simplification strips away the moral tension that runs throughout the books, where Dumbledore's past mistakes and regrets play a significant role in shaping his decisions. The moral dilemmas he faces in the books are often internal battles, ones that cannot be easily resolved with simple action or dialogue. Yet the films prioritize visual storytelling over these inner conflicts, leaving viewers with only a surface-level understanding of Dumbledore's moral complexity. The central moral theme in Dumbledore's character is his unwavering belief in the power of choice. He teaches Harry that choices define who we are and that the right decision is often the most difficult one. This philosophy is exemplified in his interactions with Harry throughout the series. Dumbledore constantly reminds Harry that he is not destined to be a hero, but that he must choose to act in the face of fear and uncertainty. This message is particularly important in the context of the war against Voldemort, where the lines between good and evil are often blurred. Dumbledore's choices, though sometimes controversial, reflect a deep understanding of the human condition and the complexities of moral decision-making. He is not a perfect figure, but rather a mentor who understands the weight of responsibility and the burden of leadership. Ultimately, Dumbledore's moral dilemmas reveal the essence of his character, a man who, despite his wisdom and power, struggles with the same ethical questions that face every person. His choices are not always easy, and he often pays a heavy price for them, but it is through these choices that he teaches Harry, as can the reader, the true meaning of courage, sacrifice, and love. The films may capture his actions, but it is the books that delve into the heart of Dumbledore's moral philosophy, showcasing the depth of his character and the complexity of his decisions. Number 20, Albus as the wise seer. Albus Dumbledore stands as one of the most enigmatic figures in J.K. Rowling's world, a character both omniscient and fallible, wise yet deeply human. In the books, his presence is not merely that of a headmaster dispensing advice to a young hero. He is a man who sees beyond the present moment, understanding how each decision ripples across time. The films, while visually magnificent, reduce much of his prophetic depth to gestures and brief moments of mystery. Yet in the novels, Dumbledore becomes something far greater, a quiet architect of destiny who, though aware of his own limitations, still acts as though the future can be shaped through understanding, love, and sacrifice. From his first appearance in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore is portrayed as a man who understands the power of choice. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities, he says, a line that encapsulates not only his philosophy but his foresight. He does not rely on divination or prophecies. Instead, he reads people, predicting their paths through the psychology of their hearts. His guidance to Harry is not about telling him what will happen, but about preparing him to face what might. The headmaster's gift lies not in seeing the future as a seer might, but in anticipating it through wisdom and empathy. In the novels, Dumbledore's vision of time is subtle and almost spiritual. He knows that the past breathes within the present, and that choices made long ago still shape the lives of those in Hogwarts corridors. This awareness allows him to act not impulsively but strategically, setting in motion events whose consequences he foresees. When he leaves Harry at the Dursleys' doorstep, it is not an act of cruelty but of painful necessity. He foresees that love, the very bond that protected Harry as a baby, must be preserved through that house, despite the suffering it will cause. The films touch on this briefly, but they do not explore the burden behind that choice, the foresight of a man who understood that salvation often demands suffering. Nowhere is Dumbledore's role as a quiet prophet clearer than in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. While the Ministry denies Voldemort's return, Dumbledore alone prepares for what he knows is inevitable. "We cannot predict what will happen," he tells Harry, "but we can prepare for it, and our preparation determines how we will react." This line, often overlooked, encapsulates his belief that readiness, both moral and emotional, defines survival. He anticipates the chaos of the coming war, building the order and guiding the younger generation, not through orders, but through example. The films present this as a political rebellion. The books reveal it as a philosophical awakening. Dumbledore's foresight is not infallible, and Rowling ensures his wisdom is always tempered by guilt. In The Half-Blood Prince, he reveals his own youth, ambition, and the tragedy of Ariana's death, a wound that shapes his cautious nature. He understands now that even the most noble intentions can birth disaster when blinded by pride. This humility becomes the foundation of his later wisdom. Unlike many prophets of literature who claim divine certainty, Dumbledore knows he might be wrong. His every decision is shadowed by regret and a deep understanding that power and vision, when combined, can easily corrupt. This recognition transforms him into a guide who leads not by force, but by trust. In the Goblet of Fire, his prediction of Voldemort's resurrection is not spoken aloud as prophecy, but shown through his actions. He prepares the school, warns his allies, and seeks the truth behind the Triwizard Tournament's dangers. When Voldemort finally returns, Dumbledore is not surprised. His calmness in that moment, his almost weary acceptance, is that of a man who foresaw the tide turning long before anyone else did. "Dark times lie ahead of us," he once said, "and there will be a time when we must choose between what is easy and what is right." That single line reveals his entire philosophy. The future cannot be predicted, but it can be prepared for through courage and conscience. The films, however, often simplify this complexity. In the Goblet of Fire movie, Dumbledore's reaction to Harry's name coming out of the goblet is explosive and impulsive, a stark contrast to the calm, collected man in the book. The literary Dumbledore knows that panic clouds judgment. He rarely acts without deep reflection. The cinematic version, though compelling, loses this quiet strength. The serenity of a man who has seen too much and understands too well how chaos unfolds. In this loss, the prophetic aura of Dumbledore fades, leaving only a mentor figure, not the far-seeing philosopher Rowling crafted. The headmaster's greatest act of foresight comes in his relationship with Severus Snape. In the Deathly Hallows, it is revealed that Dumbledore anticipated his own death and orchestrated it to protect Draco Malfoy's soul and to preserve Snape's loyalty. Such a plan requires not only intellect but faith in human redemption. He saw that even a man consumed by bitterness could still act out of love, and that love, in the end, could defeat death itself. His plan is not a simple manipulation. It is a profound understanding of human nature's potential for light, even in its darkest corners. Dumbledore's trust in Snape's better self is perhaps his most prophetic act of all. Even in his mistakes, Dumbledore's vision shapes history. He admits to Harry that he once sought the Deathly Hallows, believing he could master death. This ambition mirrors that of Voldemort, yet Dumbledore learns what the Dark Lord never does, that mastery lies not in domination, but in acceptance. He foresees, by the time of his death, that Harry must walk willingly to his fate, that the only victory over evil comes through self-sacrifice. His understanding of this truth allows him to guide Harry, even beyond the grave, through the memories and wisdom he leaves behind. The King's Cross chapter becomes his ultimate prophecy fulfilled, that death, faced with love, loses its power. Rowling paints Dumbledore not as a seer in the traditional sense, but as a moral prophet whose insight transcends divination. In the book version of The Order of the Phoenix, when Dumbledore avoids Harry for much of the year, it is not out of indifference, but foresight. He senses the psychic link between Harry and Voldemort, understanding that emotional proximity could endanger them both. The films portray this distance as coldness, but the book reveals it as painful restraint, an act of protection born from wisdom, not neglect. Dumbledore foresees the cost of attachment and bears it silently. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Dumbledore's prophetic wisdom is how human it remains. He does not claim infallibility. Instead, he acts with the awareness that even the smallest gesture can shift destiny. When he tells Harry about Tom Riddle's past, he does not present it as a fixed path, but as a warning, a mirror reflecting what might be. It is the unknown we fear when we look upon death and darkness, he explains, nothing more. These words are not predictions, they are revelations about courage and fear. Through them, he prepares Harry to meet his fate, not with despair, but with understanding. His prophecies are written in choices, not in stars. When Dumbledore entrusts the pensive to Harry, he gives him more than memories, he gives him vision. Each drop of memory allows Harry to see the past not as dead history, but as a living force that shapes the present. This act turns Harry into a kind of seer himself, someone who can read the threads of fate woven by others. Dumbledore, the true teacher, does not reveal the future, he teaches others to perceive it. The depth of Dumbledore's insight also lies in his compassion. He sees in every student, even the most flawed, a potential for greatness. He understands that prophecy in its truest form is not about destiny, but about faith. Faith that people can choose light over darkness. His decision to trust Harry to tell him the full truth at last shows his belief that foreknowledge without freedom is meaningless. The films give us glimpses of this through moments of tenderness, but the books dwell in it, turning it into the heartbeat of their moral core. In the end, Dumbledore's wisdom is not mystical, but ethical. He foresees outcomes not through spells, but through empathy, through a profound comprehension of how people love, fear, and change. His words, "Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all, those who live without love," capture this truth. They are both a prophecy and a plea. In that single sentence, he reveals what he has known all along, that the future of the wizarding world depends not on power or magic, but on the choices born of love. To understand Dumbledore fully, one must look beyond his spells and strategies. He is the embodiment of a prophecy fulfilled through understanding. In the books, every decision he makes ripples forward, shaping events long after he is gone. The films, while touching on this, cannot capture the quiet brilliance of a man who foresaw not only war, but redemption. Dumbledore's true magic lies not in predicting what will happen, but in preparing hearts to face whatever comes, the mark of a true prophet who sees not just the future, but the soul of the world itself. Number 21. Word for word, the art of communication. In the quiet corridors of Hogwarts, words often carried more power than spells. Albus Dumbledore was not merely a wizard of great magical ability. He was a master of language, a conductor of conversations who understood that words could wound, heal, and guide. In J.K. Rowling's books, Dumbledore's communication with Harry Potter shaped not only the young wizard's destiny, but also the emotional and moral tone of the entire series. His ability to speak with compassion, precision, and layered meaning made him more than a mentor. It made him a teacher of the soul. In contrast, the film adaptations, while visually enchanting, frequently stripped away the quiet artistry of Dumbledore's speech, reducing his wisdom to functional dialogue meant to advance the plot rather than to shape character. In the books, Dumbledore's words were never empty. Each phrase carried weight because it was crafted to reach the listener's heart. When Harry sat across from him in the headmaster's office, Dumbledore's sentences unfolded like carefully woven threads. Consider their exchange in The Order of the Phoenix, when Dumbledore explains why he kept Harry in the dark about the prophecy. His voice is calm, full of sorrow and restraint. "I cared about you too much. I cared more for your happiness than your knowing the truth, more for your peace of mind than my plan." In that confession there is both authority and vulnerability. He admits his mistake not as a superior, but as a flawed human being. This delicate balance between wisdom and humility defines his communication, a trait almost completely lost in the films where emotion is replaced by brief and often agitated exchanges. Dumbledore's greatest strength lies in his capacity to listen. In The Goblet of Fire, when Harry returns from the graveyard, shaken and scarred by the resurrection of Voldemort, Dumbledore's first reaction is silence. He does not interrogate or command. Instead, he lets Harry speak. The silence is not indifference, it is empathy. It gives space for pain to unfold. Rowling describes the moment with tenderness. Dumbledore listened quietly while Harry told his story. This listening is active and sacred, a form of understanding that acknowledges Harry's trauma without judgment. In the film version, however, this scene turns into a moment of tension, with Dumbledore grabbing Harry by the shoulders and demanding answers. The difference is staggering. The written Dumbledore heals through words, or through the choice not to speak, while the cinematic Dumbledore confronts, disrupts, and loses the subtlety that once defined him. Dumbledore's way of communicating is rooted in empathy rather than control. He never seeks to dominate a conversation, but to elevate it. When he speaks with Severus Snape in The Half-Blood Prince, his tone is not commanding, but contemplative. He asks questions that open doors rather than close them. Even in moments of confrontation, such as when Snape demands to know why Harry must die, Dumbledore responds with sorrow rather than anger. "You alone know why it must be so," he says softly, acknowledging Snape's moral agony. These lines reveal Dumbledore's philosophy of speech, communication as connection, not coercion. The films often transform this dynamic into a clash of temperaments, with loud voices and abrupt gestures that flatten the spiritual complexity of their dialogue. There is also poetry in the way Dumbledore teaches, through conversation. Each of his lessons to Harry is wrapped in metaphor and parable. In The Sorcerer's Stone, he tells the boy who lived, "It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live." The sentence seems simple, almost paternal, yet beneath it lies a profound truth about human nature and the weight of memory. Dumbledore's choice of words is never arbitrary. Each one feels measured, designed to stay with Harry for years. In the film adaptation, the same line is spoken briefly and without the reflective pause that the novel allows. The viewer hears advice, the reader hears philosophy. That distinction defines the difference between book and film. Dumbledore, the first invites meditation, the second offers information. Throughout the novels, Dumbledore's speech reveals his understanding of human frailty. In The Half-Blood Prince, after Harry expresses anger over what he perceives as betrayal, Dumbledore responds not with defense, but with compassion. "You are still too young to understand how unusual you are, Harry." He acknowledges the boy's frustration without dismissing it. This form of dialogue builds trust. It teaches Harry that emotions are not weaknesses but windows into truth. In the films, however, such lines are shortened or omitted entirely, depriving audiences of the intricate dance between mentor and student that Rowling so carefully built. Dumbledore's humour, too, plays a vital role in his art of communication. His wit is gentle and disarming, serving as both shield and bridge. When he announces at the end of term feast that nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak are his opening words, it is not mere eccentricity, it is a statement of philosophy. He mocks the seriousness of authority, reminding everyone that wisdom need not be solemn. His humour invites others to listen without fear. In the films, this charm often fades beneath the weight of a darker tone. The movie Dumbledore is grave and hurried. The literary one delights in the absurd as a way to reveal truth. The act of speaking for Dumbledore is inseparable from the act of feeling. His voice often carries the rhythm of emotion more than command. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, when he defends Hagrid and Buckbeak, his argument before the committee is not a legal plea but a moral one. He speaks calmly yet firmly, appealing to justice and compassion rather than bureaucratic rules. Rowling paints the scene with deliberate contrast. The headmaster's soft-spoken reason against the ministry's cold logic. Through words, he becomes the embodiment of moral clarity. In the films, this scene is condensed to a few lines, losing the layered rhetoric that made Dumbledore's speech so persuasive. The depth of Dumbledore's communication lies in his awareness of language as power. He knows that words can shape destinies as much as spells can. In the Chamber of Secrets, he tells Harry, "It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." This line captures the essence of his mentorship, guidance not through command, but through moral awakening. Every syllable is chosen to awaken responsibility, not fear. In the movie, the same phrase is delivered plainly, almost as a slogan, without the delicate emotional build-up that gives it meaning in the book. Dumbledore's dialogues are not simply exchanges of information, but moments of revelation. In the Deathly Hallows, when he meets Harry in the ethereal King's Cross after the battle, his words transcend the physical world. "Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all, those who live without love." These are not just words of comfort. They are the culmination of everything Dumbledore has ever tried to teach. His entire philosophy is distilled into one statement: the supremacy of compassion over power. The films deliver the line faithfully, yet without the emotional layering that makes it resonate in the book. The slow unfolding of Dumbledore's gentle tone, his patient pauses, the echo of his understanding. The contrast between book and film becomes clearest when examining Dumbledore's relationship with vulnerability. Rowling allows him to falter, to hesitate, to speak uncertainly. When he tells Harry in The Half-Blood Prince about the cursed ring that weakened him, his confession is steeped in regret. "I was such a fool, Harry. After all these years, I had learned nothing." The admission is quiet, almost whispered, but it carries the force of a confession from a man who has borne the burden of wisdom too long. In the movie, this moment is replaced by brisk dialogue and plot urgency, losing the aching humanity that defines Dumbledore's voice. Harry himself learns to communicate through Dumbledore's example. By the Deathly Hallows, his words echo his mentor's cadence, thoughtful, empathetic, and restrained. When he faces Voldemort and says, "Try for some remorse, Tom," he is not taunting but inviting reflection. This is Dumbledore's legacy, the transformation of language from weapon to bridge. The reader can trace this evolution directly to the countless conversations between the two across 7 books. Without those exchanges, Harry's final act of mercy would seem unearned. The artistry of Dumbledore's communication also lies in his timing. He knows when to speak and when silence is stronger. In The Order of the Phoenix, after Sirius's death, he lets Harry's anger erupt, absorbing it with patience. Only when the boy's fury subsides does he say, "You will not be punished for your anger." In that moment, Dumbledore communicates not only with words but with presence. He becomes the embodiment of understanding. The films replace this with tension and shouting, missing the serenity that made the scene powerful. Even his final words before his death are a lesson in communication. "Severus, please." These 2 words, stripped of context, sound like fear, but in truth they are layered with meaning. They are command and mercy, faith and surrender. They reveal Dumbledore's ultimate mastery of language, the ability to convey entire worlds in a whisper. The film portrays this moment with visual grandeur, yet the subtleties of tone and intent, the trembling compassion behind his plea, are muted. In Dumbledore's world, to speak well is to live wisely. His conversations form the emotional spine of the Harry Potter saga, teaching readers that words are acts of magic themselves. They can open hearts, heal wounds, and even defeat darkness. The films, while memorable, often traded that quiet artistry for spectacle. But in the pages of the books, Dumbledore remains what he was always meant to be. Not just the headmaster of Hogwarts, but the master of language, the weaver of meaning, and the voice that reminds us, again and again, that true power lies not in spells, but in how we choose to speak and listen. Number 22, the quirks that add depth. In the quiet candlelit halls of Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore was never simply a headmaster. In J.K. Rowling's books, he was a presence that defied categories, both philosopher and jester, both sage and eccentric. His wisdom glimmered not in grand speeches alone, but in the whimsical way he approached life. He could confront the darkest wizard of all time and still find humor in a pair of woolen socks. That strangeness, that gentle absurdity, gave him depth beyond the image of a perfect mentor. Yet in the cinematic world, much of that delicate strangeness was stripped away, replaced by a version of Dumbledore who was more commanding, more somber, and less alive, with the peculiar warmth that defined him on the page. In the first book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore's character glows with peculiar humanity. When Harry asks him what he sees in the mirror of Erised, a magical mirror that reveals one's deepest desire, Dumbledore calmly replies, "I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks." It is a moment of quiet brilliance. Behind the playful answer hides a profound truth. Even the greatest wizard longs for small, simple comforts. This subtle humor is not mere decoration. It humanizes him, transforming him from an unreachable legend into someone the reader could almost imagine meeting in real life. In the film, however, this moment vanishes, replaced by a more serious portrayal that sacrifices the gentle absurdity of the man who once claimed to love chamber music and knitting patterns. There is something liberating about the Dumbledore of the books. He is unafraid of being ridiculous. When he awards points to Gryffindor for pure nerve and outstanding courage at the end of the first book, he does it with theatrical flair, turning what could have been a dry announcement into a joyful, dramatic act. His eccentricity was not chaos for its own sake. It was a deliberate choice to remind those around him, especially children, that wisdom and playfulness can coexist. The films often favored grandeur and solemnity over this duality, presenting him as a figure carved out of marble. Wise but distant, rather than as the curious, mischievous man who believed laughter could coexist with grief. The difference becomes even clearer in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. In the book, when Dumbledore reinstates Hagrid and assures the students that the danger has passed, his joy bursts forth with pure mischief. He claps his hands, suggests a few extra points for the saviors of the school, and tells the students to feast and be merry. There is music in his words, a rhythm of delight that makes him feel alive. In the movie, this moment is muted, almost ceremonial. The Dumbledore we see on screen smiles faintly, speaks softly, and moves on. The spark of celebration, that touch of theatricality that defines the literary Dumbledore, fades into formality. Perhaps the greatest example of this lost eccentricity lies in his relationship with the idea of death. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure, he tells Harry in the first book. It is a line that captures both his depth and his strangeness. The notion that death, the one thing humans fear most, could be seen as an adventure rather than a tragedy. This is not stoic detachment. It is joyful wisdom wrapped in the same whimsical acceptance that allows him to joke about lemon sherbets moments later. In the films, this complexity is overshadowed by gravity. When he speaks of death, it sounds like prophecy rather than philosophy. The warmth that once softened his words becomes the echo of command. His fondness for sweets, especially sherbet lemons, is another small but powerful detail that the books cherish and the films neglect. Dumbledore's love of Muggle candy is more than a quirk. It is a symbol of his open-mindedness. He delights in simple pleasures, bridging the magical and non-magical worlds through something as humble as a lemon drop. When he offers one to Professor McGonagall or Harry, it's not a random gesture, it's an invitation into his worldview, one that celebrates joy even in the face of darkness. The omission of these details in the films might seem minor, but together they erase a part of what makes Dumbledore so deeply human. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Dumbledore's eccentricity takes on poetic form. When Hermione and Harry save Sirius Black and Buckbeak, he knows what they have done but never says it outright. He simply remarks with that twinkle in his eye, "You must not be seen." Then he adds, "A curious thing, Time." There is mischief hidden in his wisdom, a silent acknowledgement that rules exist to be bent when justice demands it. In the movie, this moment remains but loses its playfulness. The twinkle becomes solemnity. The Dumbledore of the screen seems more like a weary guardian than the mysterious, half-smiling sage who always seemed to know more than he should, and enjoyed pretending otherwise. One of the strangest and most beautiful sides of Dumbledore appears in The Goblet of Fire, where he reveals a combination of tenderness and unpredictability. After Harry's name is drawn from the goblet, the book's Dumbledore speaks calmly, with gentle curiosity. "Did you put your name into the Goblet of Fire, Harry?" In contrast, the movie transforms this into a moment of aggression. He rushes toward Harry, shouting the same question with visible anger. It is one of the most infamous deviations from the source material, and for good reason. That one shift erases an entire layer of Dumbledore's personality. The book's Dumbledore is never a man of violence. His power lies in patience and trust. His eccentric calm in moments of chaos is what makes him so magnetic. The Dumbledore who tells Harry it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live is the same man who wears midnight blue robes with silver stars and keeps a phoenix in his office. His strangeness is inseparable from his wisdom. The films often sought to elevate him into myth, but the books remind us he was a man who made mistakes, loved deeply, and sometimes spoke in riddles simply to see if others were listening. Even his fashion, flamboyant robes, half-moon spectacles, rings of strange design, reflected a man unafraid to live colourfully in a world so often painted in grey. Another detail that defines the book's Dumbledore is his empathy. When he comforts Luna Lovegood after the loss of her mother, or when he listens to Harry's anger in the Order of the Phoenix, he does so with a kind of patience that borders on the strange. He never dismisses pain, he allows it space to breathe. His words are not commands, but invitations. "You care so much you feel as though you will bleed to death with the pain of it," he tells Harry, a line that reveals his own vulnerability. The cinematic Dumbledore, though wise, often feels detached, almost too strong to share in that kind of quiet sorrow. Even his mistakes, his failure to act sooner against Grindelwald, his silence about the prophecy, his guilt over his sister Ariana, are shaped by this same eccentric mixture of intellect and emotion. The book's Dumbledore confesses these things with trembling honesty. He admits to loving power once, to fearing what it did to him. His strangeness was never just humor. It was a mask, a way to carry the unbearable weight of regret with grace. In the Deathly Hallows, when he appears to Harry in the otherworldly King's Cross, he speaks not as a prophet, but as a man who has finally forgiven himself. Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living, and above all, those who live without love. It is the culmination of all his contradictions. Wisdom wrapped in tenderness, power softened by playfulness. There is also the matter of his relationship with love itself. In the books, Dumbledore's understanding of love is deeply personal, shaped by loss and longing. He once tells Harry, "It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are far more than our abilities." That belief in moral choice above magical might makes him not just a mentor, but a mirror, one who reflects the potential for greatness in others rather than hoarding it for himself. The cinematic Dumbledore, especially in the earlier films, conveys this idea more through silence than speech, often leaving out the warmth that made these lessons linger. When Dumbledore dies in The Half-Blood Prince, the difference between book and film feels most striking. In the novel, his death is gentle, almost serene. He pleads not in fear, but in understanding, trusting even in his final moments. The Dumbledore of the page meets death as he met life, with curiosity and acceptance. In the film, his death becomes spectacle, dramatic, loud, almost violent. The serenity of his final act, the quiet dignity of a man who knew what was coming and chose peace, is lost beneath the weight of cinematic tragedy. The Dumbledore of the books believed that humor was a form of courage. His eccentricities, from sock jokes to phoenix songs, were his rebellion against despair. When he told Harry, "Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light," it was not a metaphor alone. It was the philosophy of a man who chose lightness even when burdened with shadows. The films captured his wisdom but often forgot his laughter, and without that laughter, something essential slipped away. Perhaps that is why readers remember him so vividly. The Dumbledore who twinkled through tragedy, who faced evil not just with spells but with kindness and humor. His strangeness was never a flaw. It was a reminder that greatness is not found in solemnity but in the courage to be unapologetically human.